You asked what haunts the void between stars. Here is the answer, the Custodes. The golden throne glows, its light searing the silence where the Emperor's will is carved into bone. They do not move, they do not sleep. Command the etch, what Custodes happens when a warrior is forever bound to a dead god's will. The Emperor lies interred, mortally wounded, his gaze unblinking. The Custodes guard the throne, their immortal servitude a curse that etches despair into every breath. What happens when a warrior is forever bound to a dead god's will? The Custodes were not forged as soldiers. They were sculpted in the Emperor's image, each a unique relic of his final act. Their immortality is not victory, it is a prison. They guard a throne that cannot speak, bound to a will as silent as the void. The Great Crusade's silence was a wound, this. A scar that never heals, no commander, no purpose. Only the endless echo of a god who cannot hear. They are not immortal. They are cursed to live, forever awaiting a command that will never come. In the meditation's chamber, the Custodes kneel in perfect silence, their armor glinting with the cold sheen of centuries-old steel. The air reeks of incense and oil, a relic of the Mechanicus' last rites. Each breath they take tastes of ash, a remnant of the siege of Terra's fires. Their fingers twitch, not from desire, but from the unyielding grip of the Emperor's will, a phantom hand at their throats. One among them, his visor cracked, glimpses a flicker in the golden throne's light, a face, half-formed, a memory of the Emperor's voice before the heresy. He closes his eyes, but the vision lingers. A child, not a god, weeping in the dark. They are not gods, they are not men. They are the Emperor's echo, trapped in a void where even death is a betrayal. The throne hums a low, feverish vibration, as if the Imperium itself is alive and breathing. The Custodes do not move, they cannot. Their hearts beat to the rhythm of a dead god's pulse, and in that silence they are both soldiers and prisoners, forever bound to a command that will never come. The Custodes serve not as warriors, but as echoes, their purpose shaped by a will they cannot comprehend. They are bound to a command that has never been spoken, a duty that outlives all who bear it. The Emperor's silence is their torment, a void that no faith can fill. Once he forbade worship, yet now his name is chanted across 1,000 worlds. They follow a god who does not speak, who does not need them, who exists only as a question they cannot answer. Their armor is not forged of steel, but of obedience, unyielding and unbroken. To die is to fail, to live is to wait. The Great Crusade's silence was a wound, theirs is a lifetime of bleeding into it. They are not soldiers. They are prisoners of a war that has no end. What is the cost of a faith that cannot die? The Custodes are the answer. Their immortality is not a gift but a curse, a sentence written in blood and bone. They march not for victory, but for a will that may never be theirs to know. In their eyes, the Emperor's shadow falls heavier than any blade. They are the Imperium's shield, but the shield cannot feel the weight of the burden it bears. To serve a god who does not speak is to drown in the silence between his breaths. The Custodes do not count years, they do not mark time, their titles are not earned, they are assigned: Praetor, Castellan, Sentinel. Each name is a sentence, each sentence is a prison. Their hierarchy is not built on ambition. It is carved into the marble of the imperial palace, where the golden throne waits. 1,000 eyes watch the throne. 1,000 hands guard its secrets. No voice rises above another, no will bends beneath another. The Custodes do not lead, they do not follow. They exist as a single unbroken chain. Their purpose is not questioned, it is not chosen, it is etched into their bones. To serve the Emperor is to serve the void between his breaths. To guard his legacy is to guard a flame that has long since died. 10,000 warriors, 10,000 ghosts. Bound to a god who does not speak, bound to a duty that does not end. What does it mean to be immortal when death is the only escape? But the war of the beast nearly shattered the Imperium, and the Custodes were its last hope. Immortal, unyielding, bound to a dead god's will. Their endless battles are not glory but a curse, each victory a hollow echo, each death a prison. What happens when a warrior is forever trapped in a war that never ends? The air reeked of scorched metal and ash as the siege of Terra burned. The Emperor's final breath had been a whisper, a shuddering sigh that left the golden throne trembling. His body, still and pale as moonlight, lay cradled in the throne's embrace, its golden filigree now tarnished by the smoke of 1,000 dying stars. The Custodes stood motionless, their armor cold against the heat of the inferno, their eyes fixed on the Emperor's unmoving face. They could not weep. Their voices had been stolen by the weight of eternity. When the 13th Black Crusade came, the sky split open like a wound. Cadia's spires crumbled into the void, their shattered remains swallowed by the great rift's maw. The Custodes did not flinch, they did not run. Their boots pressed into the cracked earth as Abaddon's legions descended, a storm of fire and ruin. The air was thick with the stench of sulfur and blood, the ground quaking beneath the weight of the damned. Yet the Custodes stood, their banners unbroken, their eyes unblinking. They had seen empires fall before, they would see this one too. But in the silence between heartbeats, in the hollow spaces where the Emperor's voice should have been, something gnawed at them. A question ancient and unanswerable, why do we endure? The answer lay in the golden throne, in the Emperor's pooled essentia, a mosaic of shamanic sacrifices, a relic of the age before the fall. Ancient in flesh but a vessel, God who could not the answer. Soldiers. They were echoes bound to a will that had long since ceased to move. They had no choice, they never would. The weight of the throne was not just on their shoulders, it was in their bones, in their marrow, in the endless march of the dead. And still they stood, still they watched, still they waited. Praetor Magnus stood where the first Custodes were sculpted, his form a relic of the Emperor's own hands. His eyes never blinked, though the centuries carved shadows into their depths. Castellan Calix walks the halls of the Golden Throne, his voice stilled by the weight of a war he never lived to finish. The fallen, those who faltered, who hesitate, were not slain. They were unmade, their names burned from the Imperium's memory like ash from a forge. The Emperor crafted them not as warriors, but as monuments. Each Custodes is a living statue, their genetic code a prison of perfection. They do not age, they do not bleed, they do not forget. Their bodies are temples, their wills the Emperor's own. You have seen their armor gleam in battle, but have you seen the hollows beneath their eyes, the silence between their breaths? They were not made to die. The Emperor's will is absolute, and death is not an option. To question him is to unravel the very fabric of one's being. The Custodes do not dream. They do not speak of the void beyond the Emperor's shadow. They exist only to serve, to stand, to endure. And yet what is an immortal without purpose? The Primarchs were born to shape worlds. The Custodes were made to guard one. Their immortality is not a gift, but a sentence. They are the Emperor's final act, his last testament to a god who never died. But what happens when a god's will outlives his flesh? When a warrior is bound to a dead god's will, the Custodes never die. They never rest, they never stop watching. The Emperor's 10,000 are not soldiers. They are the weight of eternity, the price of a god's obsession. And in their unblinking gaze, in their silent march, you see the truth. Immortality is not a blessing. It is the slow, unrelenting erosion of the soul. The modern era reveals the Custodes as the Imperium's final bulwark against the void. Their unrelenting march across millennia hides a truth. Immortality is a prison. Bound to a dead god's will, they fight without end. No respite. No rest. Their silence speaks of wars never won, of a curse that outlives its purpose. What remains when the Emperor's shadow falls over a dying galaxy? The Custodes stand, always waiting. The Custodes march still. Their armor, forged in the fires of forgotten wars, bears the weight of centuries. They fight in the Indomitus Crusade now, blades flashing in the darkness between stars. Yet their victories are hollow. The Emperor's will is a cipher, his silence a blade that cuts deeper than any enemy's. They serve a god who cannot speak, a master whose commands are riddles wrapped in blood. The Imperium clings to life by a thread. The Custodes are its fingers, its last grip on sanity. They fight not for glory, but for a duty that cannot end. The great rift has torn the galaxy asunder, and the Custodes stand at its edges, watching. They are the Emperor's 10,000, bound to a throne that cannot rule. Their immortality is not a gift, it is a prison. Each year they face the same question, why endure? The answer is written in the stars. Humanity's survival depends on their unyielding march. But the cost is in their souls. To be immortal is to be forever unfinished. To serve a god who cannot speak is to live in the dark. The Custodes do not rest, they do not die. They are the Emperor's shadow stretching across the void. The golden throne is silent. Its occupant cannot speak, cannot guide, cannot even confirm his own existence. The Custodes are his chosen, his final act. They are the last hope of a galaxy that has forgotten how to hope. Their immortality is a curse that outlives every war, every battle, every sacrifice. They are the Emperor's 10,000, forever marching, forever waiting, forever cursed. The Imperium's enemies know this. They fear the Custodes not for their strength, but for their endlessness. A force that cannot fall, that cannot break, that cannot be bought or bribed. The Custodes are the Emperor's will made flesh. And the Emperor's will is a mystery no man can solve. They fight for a god who cannot speak. They die for cause that cannot be explained. The Custodes are the last breath of the Imperium, and the last breath is never enough. They are the Imperium's eternal vanguard, a testament to the Emperor's unknowability and the cost of devotion to a dead god. The Custodes never die. Not by blade, not by fire, not by the void's endless hunger. Their bodies rot, their minds fracture. Still they march. The Emperor's will is a whisper in the dark, a cipher written in blood and bone. Guilliman alone knows its shape. Yet even he cannot speak it. The golden throne holds a god who cannot answer. What happens when a warrior is forever bound to a dead god's will? They become a monument, a living tomb. Their purpose is not to conquer, but to endure, to repeat the siege of Terra until the stars forget its name. Their immortality is a prison, every breath is a sentence, every step a prayer to a god who cannot hear. The Custodes are not soldiers. They are the Imperium's confession, a faith that cannot be explained. The Emperor's silence is not a flaw, it is a design. A test of loyalty that never ends. The Custodes are its answer, and the answer is always the same, more. They are the last breath of the Imperium, and the last breath is never enough. The Emperor's 10,000 are not cursed. They are the curse, a silent war fought in the name of a god who cannot speak. The universe watches and waits. For the day the Emperor's will is finally understood, or for the day the Custodes finally stop listening. The golden throne glows, incandescent, unblinking. The Custodes stand like statues in its light. Their armor is not polished, it is shattered, reforged, and reforged again. They do not move, they cannot. The Emperor's will is a blade in their bones, a war without end, a duty without purpose. They watch the throne, they guard it. They are not soldiers, they are prisoners. Their eyes see nothing but the Emperor's face, still, silent, broken. The siege of Terra was not their end, it was their beginning. Every breath they take is a debt, every step a sentence. They are not cursed to live, they are cursed to serve, to follow, to never know why. The throne's glow is a prison. The Custodes' silence is a confession. The universe watches and waits for the day the Emperor's will is finally understood, or for the day the Custodes finally stop listening. Is the Custodes' immortality a sacred duty or a cruel cosmic joke? Their unyielding servitude binds them to a god whose voice is a whisper through blood and ash. The astronomicon hums with a cost no mortal can name. What sacrifices fuel its light? What shadows lie beneath its glow? The answer will haunt you. Join us next time.